Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I'd also like to acknowledge the outstanding work that our staff on both sides of the aisle have done this year. They deserve our respect, our gratitude, and our thanks today and always. Can we give them a round of applause, please? And I'm going to go ahead and go straight to the bill.
To the bill.
Members of the House, we come here to Springfield every year, fresh-faced and bright-eyed in January, and we work really hard all spring to pass our bills, impact policy, and advance our district's priorities. Then by the end of May, we're a little ragged, tired, and with a few new gray hairs, but we go back home and we answer to our constituents. And that is truly our first priority, serving our constituents and knowing their needs and wants, and making sure that what we advance here matches what they need us to do. So when you vote on the budget tonight, I want you to ask yourselves, is this what my constituents need from their state government? And I know there are both good and bad things in the budget, and we've discussed many of these already, so I'm not going to belabor all the points. But it is important to point out, though, that people on both sides of the aisle have had valid and legitimate concerns with the direction of state spending, rising taxes, and the hypocrisy of legislative pay raises. Republicans have been a little more public about our concerns, but I know there are people on both sides who know this is unsustainable. And yes, some Democrats are concerned about going back home and explaining their vote on this budget tonight to their constituents, because their constituents and ours are hurting. While Illinois government has expanded dramatically over the last few years, Illinois families are hurting. Utility costs, mortgages, property taxes, food, childcare have risen just as dramatically as government budgets. So what do Illinois families do about this? They reduce their spending, they defer large purchases, they find ways to cut costs. They certainly can't give themselves a pay raise. They do their best to cope with the circumstances before them. Now, what does Illinois state government do when our families are hurting? Raise $1 billion in taxes, transfer money fund to fund to meet budget gaps, reward Democrat politicians with hundreds of millions of dollars of member projects, and in fact, raise our bonding authority to do so, and prioritize non-citizens over our Illinois families. That is definitely something members on both sides of the aisle will have to explain to their constituents. So what could we have done differently?
Representative Elik, your time is up. Representative Fritz will yield his time.
Thank you. So what could we have done differently? Well, just a couple weeks ago, the governor's office put out a memo suggesting that agencies should prepare for cuts of $800 million if the tax increases weren't approved. Thus began the pearl clutching to think that anyone should suggest that state government find ways to cut back so that taxes wouldn't have to be raised. Now, come on, anyone in this room who has ever sat in an appropriations hearing or the Legislative Audit Commission knows that our agencies could be more efficient and can do it with less dollars. But no, this body instead decided to raise taxes, spend more, and give politicians yet another pay raise. So when you go home to your constituents, how will you answer them? Will you say you did everything you could to avoid tax increases? Will you say you fought against the massive spending? Will you admit that you're concerned about the direction of the state? What about when they ask you what you did to lower property taxes or utility prices? I am still hopeful that one year I'll be able to vote yes on a budget. I am an optimist. I want to be part of the process. I'm willing to compromise and negotiate, but this is not the year for me. And I think that if you have that uncomfortable feeling in your stomach over this budget like I do, or you feel like maybe you're not going to be able to convince your constituents that what we've done here makes the state stronger, then it shouldn't be your year for a yes vote either. I strongly urge you to think of your constituents, acknowledge what they need from state government, consider whether what we are doing here really helps them in the long run, and then vote accordingly. I urge a no vote.